Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, Astral Ascension. My name is Angela, and today I'm going to be talking about the aspects of squares in our natal charts and how they can actually be utilized for our own growth and transformation. So, jumping right into it, astrology actually goes much further than simply a way of understanding ourselves more and how we relate with others. Our natal chart actually can serve as a sort of guide or map to our transformation, to the shadow work and the deep healing that needs to occur in this lifetime, and ultimately the realization of our potential. So yes, our natal chart actually leaves hints all throughout of areas that need to be paid attention to and worked on and integrated in this lifetime. With this understanding, we can actually utilize our natal charts to transcend our limitations. So first, what is a square? A square is when two planets are in signs that are 90 degrees away from each other. And a 90-degree angle means that the signs are in different elements, but the same modality, which means they have very different approaches to the same internal drive or function. And this difference in approach in trying to achieve the same thing is what creates the tension and struggle that is associated with squares. So when looking at your own natal chart, I think that squares are one of the most important things to consider because they represent the areas where we find challenges and tension, and therefore they show us our work in this lifetime and where we can actually have the most growth. Oftentimes, squares represent the shadow aspects of ourselves because it's the part of ourselves that we don't really want to see. The more we become conscious of these areas, the more the more we refuse to become conscious of these areas, the more present they become in our outward life, because the subconscious mind is trying to get our conscious mind to bring attention to these areas. So even though we may overlook these parts of ourselves or try to deny them, the impact of them is going to be very prevalent. Squares, whether it be in a natal chart, a synastry chart, or transit chart, are likely going to be the cause or have something to do with the negative patterns, the struggles, the inner turmoil, and the challenges that you're coming into with others, as well as dramatic or catastrophic situations. Usually this can be traced back to a square. So despite this, it is my belief that integrating and bringing awareness to squares is where we can uncover some of our greatest gifts. So with aspects like trines or sextiles or conjunctions, you have two planets that are already interacting with understanding and usually harmony. There isn't much work you need to do to integrate because the planets already know how to work together in these signs. And while these aspects do show us our positive attributes, they don't really offer us much growth or change. So with easy aspects, the potentiality of the two planets involved is already realized, whereas with a square, the potential is there, but you have to work to realize it and to uncover these gifts. So what's cool about a square is when you do begin to neutralize the relationship between the planets involved, the results of this impact or the results and impact is often unpredictable, dynamic, complex. It can even be brilliant because you're teaching two energies that don't normally relate well to work with each other. And not only are you getting the combination of the energy of the planets, but you're getting the lessons, the strength, and the insights that were gained from the work that you did to try to get them to harmonize and work together. So that is the significance of squares and why I believe it's important to integrate them. And now we can start looking at how to actually integrate them. So of course, you need to first be conscious of the squares in your natal chart. If you aren't already, I do challenge you to kind of make a short list in your mind or write it down of the most negative patterns or behaviors that you see yourself engaging in the most, or that seem to cause the most tension in your life. And then when you go and you look at your natal chart, you might be surprised that the squares that you have correlate very well to the things that you made note of. Of course, you would need to have a basic understanding of the associations with each planet in order to recognize this. So, regardless, whether you do this exercise or not, once you know where the squares are in your chart, you want to kind of look inward and start considering where are these squares showing up and playing out in your life. It's easy to look at an interpretation that someone else wrote, but reflecting on it yourself is really going to give you greater insights and understandings that are much more personal to you. Because in truth, when you have two planets in an aspect, there's almost an infinite ways to interpret what this aspect could mean for any individual, because the planets and the aspects only represent energies and associations. They don't represent specific things that are necessarily going to happen or be the case. So if you have a good understanding of these associations and energies, then you can intuitively understand how it's impacting your own life. I can give an example here. So for instance, if you have Sun squaring Mars, the Sun, of course, is associated and represents ego and identity. The square is associated with and represents tension, and Mars is associated with and represents action, desire, and our aggression. So the Sun being in tension with Mars is not going to look the same for everyone. For some, it could mean someone who is overly aggressive in how they express themselves. It could be someone who has a hard time with taking action, or on the contrary, it can be someone who is too impulsive. So you have the best chance of intuitively knowing for yourself which interpretation, applies to you. Or if you do read, another astrologer's interpretation, just know you can feel into what you need to take and what you can leave. You don't necessarily need to relate with every interpretation of an aspect. So once you understand the challenges that you're clearly working with the square, you want to start reflecting on some practices or habits that you can begin to develop that will bring balance between these two planets or these two energy. You might even come up with habits and behaviors that you should avoid, habits or behaviors that are more likely to increase the tension or to increase the disharmony. So let me give you a few examples here. So somebody with Sun square Mars, they may benefit greatly from very conscious and gentle physical movement practices such as gentle yoga or Tai Chi. They'll benefit from any sort of maybe breath meditation, because people with this aspect might find themselves having hard times with anger, so they can learn how to regulate their anger with breathing meditations, so on and so forth. And then behaviors that somebody with this aspect might need to avoid are overworking or overactivity. It's really important with this aspect to incorporate rest and balance in your life. So that's Sun square Mars and how that could look. And now somebody with Sun square Neptune, per se, they could really benefit perhaps from establishing structure and routines in their life, grounding practices, and something they might want to avoid is mind-altering substance, because there's a high tendency to fantasize with this aspect to an unhealthy degree. So a lot of times mind-altering substances can perpetuate that for a Sun square Neptune. So once you're aware of the square and the impact, you'll begin to recognize when it emerges in your life, and it won't be so much of this subconscious thing anymore where you don't even know what is happening, right? So it's going to be challenging to overcome, because these patterns have been ingrained in your programming. They're literally written into the energy of your chart, but you're equipped with your practices and you'll be able to handle it once you bring awareness to it. Remember, there's a reason that these aspects are in your chart, and it's because consciousness or the universe, or however you want to think of it, is calling attention to these areas, and it's up to you to integrate them. So that's it. With all that being said, I think astrology is amazing. I think a lot of people sometimes use it too much for sort of just understanding themselves and reading all about themselves, but And that's great. But once you have that information, it's what do you do with it? It's actually utilizing astrology as a means for transformation and our own growth and realizing our potential, So don't get caught up in just the endless reading and watching videos of all sorts of things. Actually try to bring some practice into your relationship with astrology and see what that does for you. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment if you have questions. If you have a particular square aspect in your chart and have a question about it, I will do my best to answer it. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much for watching.